Welcome to the Happy Market Research Podcast, your favorite place for strategies, stories, and insights from the world of market research. Brought to you by your host, Dan Fleetwood.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Happy Market Research Podcast. I am your host, Dan Fleetwood. And today I have Marilisa Beatty with me, and she is from KGT. She is the VP of Qualitative Research there. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, hi, Dan. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, awesome. So for all of our qual heads, this is going to be an episode that you'll want to listen to for sure, because I know you have a ton of information and a ton of good ideas around this. So I'm excited to dive in. Before we get started, can you give just a little bit of intro about your background? Maybe talk about how you entered market research?
Yeah, absolutely. So I got into market research because when I was growing up, my mom was the office manager of a small market research firm.
Oh,
And they always had various projects they needed help with. For example, they were doing a toilet seat study. So I spent a few weeks putting stickers on toilet seats, ABC, for the mall intercept study.
yeah.
And anyway, I spent a number of summers and winter breaks helping out with projects like that around the office. And so when I grew up and it was time to enter the workforce, market research was something I could put on my resume beyond having worked at the mall and things like that. So market research was just something that both I was interested in and I knew a little bit about through experiences with my mom's office. And so it just kind of felt like a natural fit.
That's interesting. So I don't meet too many people that kind of grew up in market research. So it's a little bit of an oddity, right?
That's true. I haven't met anyone else like that either, but I'll say, I felt really lucky to be exposed at a younger age because, like many people, I'm not sure I would have known about the industry had I not had that experience.
Yeah, that's a fair point. I think now it feels like there's a little bit more exposure to the industry just with some of the different degree programs. And I mean, obviously with, social media and so forth, things kind of expand out. But back in the day, it was very like a niche, even more so than it is now. And I find most people fall into research. They don't necessarily like seek it out, if that makes sense. So I really like your story there. So you've been in research for a while. What's been a defining moment in your career? Is there anything that comes to mind?
Yes, absolutely. I think about the first time I ever moderated, and maybe other people in qual or moderators can relate to this story. But the first time I ever moderated, I actually wasn't trained. I didn't even know I was going to moderate that day. I was in, I'm going to say, Chicago with my boss. I was very new to qual. I was there in the back room with the clients just to help with client management and take some notes. And very honestly, I think my boss that day just got tired. He got tired, or he just got bored of doing the same interview over and over. And he came in the back and he said, "Get up there, you're going to moderate." And I didn't really have a choice, did I? So I just went and did it. And it was scary and it was fun. And it just got my endorphins going. And I knew kind of off the bat, I really loved it, despite kind of having that traumatic first experience. But truly it changed my life. And since that day, I don't know, the better part of 20 years ago, I've been moderating, and now I've been training people to moderate, and it's just kind of become my life's work.
Yeah, that's good. Sometimes being, quote unquote, thrown into the fire is the way to go, right? And just, all right, you're up. That's good. I'm curious to dive into moderation a little bit. What are some of like the tips or tricks that you find work well for you that you would recommend maybe for other moderators out there?
Sure. For me personally, working through a guide, especially a new guide, or if for some reason someone else wrote the guide for me, I'm all about visual cues. So when I get a guide from whoever wrote it, I am very much reformatting it and using a lot of color coding, bolding, placing words and paragraphs in different places. So no matter what happens, I can look down and have a number of visual cues as where I am in the conversation. And I feel like that helps, particularly in the first day of research when it's all new and you're keeping track of time, you're trying to see if the guide is actually working, all the clients are chatting. I really like having just kind of that safety net to make me feel good about going into any new piece of research.
Yeah, that makes sense. Definitely some good pre-planning goes a long way, right? In terms of when you're moderating,
Mhm.
because it can be stressful. You're like thinking, what questions do I ask next? Where do I want to take this? But if you have that good guide, it seems like that helps out quite a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And to that point of preparation, I was just training someone who wants to be a moderator. And
Yeah.
one thing I said to her that I say to a lot of new moderators is, you know, when you're going into research, it's very likely, I mean, maybe you are, but it's very likely that you're not going to be the smartest person in the room. I say
Hmm.
that because the person you're interviewing probably knows more about it than you do because they're either living it or they're the expert on it.
Hmm.
Your clients are living and breathing this product, so they probably know more than you about it.
Hmm.
But even if you're not the smartest in the room, you can be the most prepared in the room.
Mm.
And I think good moderation is 90% about preparation. And nobody can take that away from you if you spend that time preparing appropriately.
Yeah, well said. And that can go into a lot of different avenues in life too, right? Just be prepared, and it can get you a
Mhm.
long way. I like that.
Exactly.
What are some of the things that motivate you to date? Is it the connection with people? Is it the work itself? What are some of those things that help motivate you?
Hmm. It's a little bit of both. So KJT, we do healthcare market research, so a lot of
Hmm.
pharma and device biotech.
Hmm.
We do a lot of work with rare diseases, and so I'm personally really motivated by that, and I find working in the rare disease space really rewarding because at the end of the day, you do feel like your work is helping to bring life-changing products to these people with rare diseases.
Hmm.
So it's the work, it's the people, and it's hopefully that end goal.
Yeah, that's awesome. So your work is really saving lives then. That's a lot more than some of us can say. I like
I mean, I don't know about all that, but in the best case scenario, yes.
it. See? Yeah, nice. That's good. I like that. Let's move into a little bit of market research itself and expertise. I'm curious to get your take on, where you think market research needs to modernize. Or is there anything that comes to mind there in terms of methodologies or techniques
Mhm.
or, AI? Obviously, we can obviously dive into that, but I'm curious to get your take there around where we need to modernize in our industry.
I have a little bit of a hot take on this for you.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Right now, I don't feel like modernizing further is a big unmet need. I
Mm,
almost think we need to regain some of the old school skills that
mhm,
we've lost in this world of technology and AI and speed and efficiency. So I would think if we can take some steps back, if we can rediscover the art of reading comprehension beyond, a communication that's like two bullets,
mhm,
if we can continue to work on our patience and attention spans, I think that's important because we are losing that more and more
yeah,
every day with everything that we do. And I know a big challenge insights teams have, particularly on the supplier side, when we're trying to deliver insights. It is, of course, important for us to deliver things that are punchy, impactful, kind of in your face. But there are topics that really the person consuming that information needs to be able to sit down and pay attention to. Especially in healthcare, there are things that require explanation and it requires data. But I
mhm.
think consumers of that information have such a short attention span now. We're losing a little bit of getting the nuance from research because
Mm.
we're so focused on the big headlines.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of like you take, two steps forward, one step back, right? And it's like, hey, we need to take a few more steps back in order to let's rethink of how we're doing. And it reminds me of this, just because you can doesn't mean that you should, right? Or just because you could doesn't mean that you should. And I think we're in a little bit of this right now with obviously the advancements and all the monetization. It's like taking a step back and thinking, what do we really need, and is this really solving a problem, or are we just working on something to work on something? So I
Yeah.
really like that take actually of going back and even thinking about the basics, right? Are we doing the basics correctly? Are we not? And what do we need to keep? What do we not need to keep? So it makes a ton of
Yeah.
sense to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially with AI, we really do need to focus on the basics because you need
Mhm.
that basic skill set when you're checking the quality of the work of the AI. If you
Yeah.
don't even know the basics, you're not going to know if it's spitting out something of high quality or not.
Hmm.
So we can't skip over those steps, those fundamentals that will always be important in our industry.
Yeah. Do you think that's like one of the biggest challenges right now that your teams or your
Mm.
coworkers are facing in terms of, is it like, where do we modernize? Where do we not modernize? Or are there other things that come to mind in terms of some of the biggest challenges or problems you're tackling right now?
Mm. Modernize or not is definitely one of them.
Hmm.
Another challenge is because we're constantly being pushed to modernize, the
Yeah.
challenge is finding the time and the headspace to continue to learn that while you're
Yeah.
also trying to do your work, give the clients great service, produce great insights. So this happens with any given technological evolution or revolution.
Hmm.
Every time we do things to make one thing faster, 15 other tasks come up to take up that time, right?
Right.
So even if we're doing little things faster here and here, so many other things are going to creep up in that space. And so it does kind of get to feel like that hamster wheel of every time we find efficiencies here, well, now apparently I just have extra time to do a whole lot of other work over here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a bit of a challenge too.
Yeah. It's a good point. I often wonder, like, are we being more efficient, like looking for all these efficiencies, or should we just, be efficient in what we're doing? It's an interesting take because even in learning AI and all these different methodologies that you can advance with AI, I feel like a lot of time you're not being that efficient while you're,
Mm.
testing things out and looking at it. And so it is an interesting point, I think, for sure, in terms of, are we just doing this just to do it, or is it really going to help out efficiency? So it's very interesting.
Yeah, and I do think a lot of it is helping with efficiency,
Hmm.
but I know in my world, some of it hasn't. I mean, I think overall it's a big win for the
Hmm.
insights industry, but it's not, nothing's going to be 100%, right? But we do just have to
Right.
experiment and learn and figure it out as we go.
Yeah, 100%. Now, we talked a little bit about AI. Is it changing your approach at all? How are you integrating a little bit in or not a lot
Mhm.
in? What's your take there?
Yeah, so I integrate it a lot. So I will say I haven't dabbled with agentic AI yet, but in
Mhm.
terms of generative I use probably in every task almost that I do,
Yeah.
especially every part of the research process from proposal writing through delivery for sure. I really use generative AI as a thought partner and a research assistant. And I do already feel a little nervous. If I didn't have that, I'd be like, oh no, who do I talk to now? Who do I quickly bounce ideas off of?
Hmm.
So I use it quite a lot.
I think the way that I like to think about it is like ChatGPT, Gemini, any one of these. It's like the best research assistant I've had. I think in some cases, like, you can just ask questions, it gets back to you. It's very pleasing. Like, it wants to give you good answers and be positive. So I really appreciate that. And to your point, even in my work, I use it quite a bit in terms of just bouncing ideas, cleaning things up, thinking about different things of how I need to be thinking about it. What are some angles that I'm not thinking about? So
Mhm.
that's interesting. Are you utilizing like AI in like discussion guides as well as helping out with like analyzing all the qualitative data that can be very heavy, right?
Yes, so I use it both ways. So for discussion guides, if I'm using it for human moderation, if if it's a brand new topic area, I
Hmm.
might use it to do a guide outline just to save that time. But
Yeah.
I've been doing it for so long, I think it's easy enough for me to just create an outline top of mind. I do like it if I'm struggling with how to word a particular question
Yeah.
or if I want to word it a different way, I like to put that into play with how that could be worded. So I use it that way. In
Hmm.
our company, we also do use some AI moderated platforms.
Oh
And in
yeah.
those platforms, they do quickly generate a guide for you
Hmm.
that you can edit. So that's something new in our world that's really interesting too.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'd like to dive into that a little bit because there's a lot of companies now that are doing AI moderated qual, right? And
Mhm.
I'm curious to get your take on that. Have you used it? What's your take? And is it good, bad, somewhere in between? And maybe
Yeah.
it depends on the use case, but
Mhm.
I'd love to get your take there.
Yes, I do think it depends on the use case. I just went through an exercise of making a whole decision tree of use cases, but it's great for speed and qual at scale or
Hmm.
detailed quant. It can be good for certain sensitive topics where somebody might feel more comfortable talking
Yeah.
with AI and not having clients watching. It's great for quick hit research, gut check things, all of that. But there are times when it's not so good and you have to use a human.
Hmm.
In the case of healthcare research, if you're working in oncology, and in oncology, there's typically many, many lines of therapy in a treatment paradigm. The AI is not good at capturing that.
Hmm.
So you want a human for that. Certain sensitive topics or populations are better handled by a human than AI.
Hmm.
um, if the client wants to be really involved in the research and they want to be watching the interviews and interacting with the moderator, I think sometimes they don't have in mind that with AI you can't do that.
Oh, that's a good
So
point.
that's a whole element of traditional qual experience that isn't included there.
Mm.
So when I tell people about the decision tree of how to go with human or AI moderated qual, the big things you want to be thinking about are the objectives always,
Hmm.
um, the type of client you're working with, their timeline, their costs, and the topic area.
Hmm.
But I do think people kind of forget about that client piece. So again, one thing that's important to think about is, do they expect to be highly hands-on in this research or not? Is it a team that wants like a 30-page discussion guide with 15 probes after every question? That's not going
Hmm.
to happen in AI.
Right.
If they think they're going to be able to change the guide all the time, AI is not for them. So kind of think about it. You kind of need a little bit more of a low key, go with the flow client for AI. But if
Hmm.
you have someone who's really high touch, really finicky, kind of high maintenance, that's still kind of the human's job in my eyes at this point.
Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And then, are you seeing? Is it just AI moderated like IDIs, or is there AI moderated focus groups too? I think the focus groups would be challenging, but have you seen that?
Yeah, I haven't.
Yeah,
So
neither have
far,
I
we've only
actually.
been using the IDI, and I can't even picture how it would work with a focus
Yeah,
group, but I'm
yeah,
sure somebody's going to figure it out.
yeah. I was thinking about it as you were talking. I'm like, is there like AI moderated focus groups, and how would that even work? But
I have no
IDIs make
idea.
sense with the one-on-one, but I just
Mhm,
didn't know if I was missing something there. Let's
mhm.
dive into your point of view on things. I would love to dive into this and kind of ask you some questions here. What's a belief you hold that more people should understand, or more people you think should understand this belief that you hold?
Hmm. I think one thing that comes to mind is how people approach learning how to use AI in their
Mm,
workflows. So I think at this point, a lot of folks in the insights industry are using AI, but there's still almost a surprising number who aren't. And I hear a lot of different reasons why they aren't, one of them being just the hurdles against learning it.
hmm.
So I believe that in order to get over that initial kind of intimidation of learning how to use AI, there's two things that you can think about. One is not thinking about it like learning a tool set because that's daunting. Think
Yeah.
about it as gaining a skill set. So you're continuously learning and growing with the AI and how to use it. The other thing I say is approach your learning from a place of comfort and power. By that,
Mm,
I mean, if you're already a researcher and you have research skills, approach learning AI as you would learning a new product category or a new treatment category. How would you do that? Take those literal steps and apply that to learning how to use AI. Another example here is we ask people questions all the time. That's what we do. Let's say I was going to interview a cardiologist and my client wanted to know, how do we best communicate with cardiologists? Well, I would ask them that, doctor, how do pharma companies best communicate with you? You can do that with AI. Just ask it. Here's what I want to accomplish. How do I do it? Here's also what I want to accomplish. Give me a 3-step plan to help me do that. So I think when you learn AI, some people forget you can interact with it and just ask it. Ask, how do I do this? And we've never had that feature in terms of learning anything else before, right? So I really just encourage people to use the skills you already have, to allow it to teach you how to use it.
Yeah, that's great. I really like what you said around think of it as a skill set, not a tool set. It kind of changes the paradigm there of why you want to learn it. So that's a great nugget there. What's a misconception people have about research?
I guess one might be more data equals more insights. That's not necessarily true, because the insights don't come from the volume of the data. It comes from the interpretation of the data. Another thing is maybe insights can't give certainty. It can't guarantee the outcome for something. But while it can't promise certainty, it can provide clarity. And so if someone's in leadership, someone's purchasing research, I think it's important that they know that this isn't going to give you 100% the answers, but it will give you clarity around the answers and where you should go with this.
Yeah, that's good. It reminds me of this quote so Chris Robson is a data scientist here and all around AI guru, but he always says, data reduces the risk of decision making, and that, can reduce that uncertainty. So I think that makes a ton of sense, and it's maybe not 100% answer, right? Maybe it's not 100% right, but it will help you in reducing the uncertainty there. So that makes a ton of sense.
Exactly. It's risk mitigation, if nothing else.
Yeah. Is that something you think that leaders get wrong about insights, or are there other things that you see out there that hey, this is just not right?
Yes. So that's definitely one, understanding that it's clarity, not certainty. The other thing that some leaders get wrong is understanding the importance of activation, or overlooking that activation step. So the work of research doesn't end when you get that report back and there's a readout meeting. That's not the end of the story. If the learnings die there, then what was it all for? So that activation piece, I think, is sometimes overlooked. So the socialization, the storytelling, really embedding what you learned in that research into your business planning doesn't always happen. And I don't know if you've seen this. I have to assume other researchers have seen this. You do all the work, they get the report, and then it just kind of it goes into the files. No one ever talks about it again. You're like, well, why did we do that?
No, it's one thing, that we preach here is, don't let the data die in like a SharePoint file or Google Drive, right? Like, bring it to life. Otherwise, all those insights you collected are just going to die. So yeah, no, it is true. You definitely have to act on the research. Otherwise, what did you even spend a bunch of money to collect the research in the first place? So in terms of, this might be tough to do, and I'm always cognizant of that, but next 3 to 5 years, we can go in a shorter time frame if 3 to 5 years is too long. Maybe the next year or two. What excites you the most about research or the future in general?
We'll go with 3 to 5 years. And I say that because I very recently started dipping my toe into researching what will be the soft skills that will be really important for the insights industry to master in 3 to 5 years, in light of all of the things that are happening with AI technology. I find that exciting because I do think over time, the key soft skills aren't necessarily the same. So I started to wonder, what can we be preparing for now? How can we start training ourselves now from a futurist perspective of what we'll need then? So one thing that I came up with, or that I found, was the skill of I guess, what would we call it? This isn't the right word I want to look for, but very quick learning, and kind of macro learning. And so we are not just going to have to keep learning things, but we're going to have to unlearn, relearn, pivot constantly at the speed of technology. And that really is a skill in itself that we'll have to master. And it's a skill that humans, we tend to be pretty grumpy about that because behavior change is hard. And that's why a lot of people are still dragging their feet today with tech and AI. But in 3 to 5 years, if you don't have that soft skill, you're likely to fall to the bottom.
Yeah, that's good. Would you say it's like more iterative learning then? Like you need to keep learning on what what you've learned in the past, but also to your point, you're like sometimes you might have to like completely unlearn everything and kind of start from scratch. So that's an interesting point.
Right. Learning agility
there. That's perfect. And then as we start to wrap up here, I'm curious to get your take around, is there like a tech or approach in research that you think is underrated that in the future we should bring it more to light?
Sure. Okay, I'll quickly mention one approach that I really like. This has nothing to do with tech. Kind of goes back to that old school. These are just things we can do as human. So one approach I really like, because you can use it in interviews, you can use it yourself as you're writing, as a writing prompt. You can use this with your teams as you're brainstorming. You can use this in workshops with clients. So there's many uses for this. It's called the 10-5-1 technique. I don't know if that's what it's called. That's what I call it, 10-5-1. So here's what you do.
Got it.
So you give your respondent, yourself, your client, whoever, the topic. In the example I used when I demoed this technique with our researchers, I said, what are your thoughts on McDonald's? So you put 1 minute on the clock, and whoever's doing this has to write 10 words that they associate with McDonald's. Any 10 words, doesn't matter, no right or wrong answers, as long as they do it within a minute. And then you reset the clock and you say, now you only have 30 seconds. Give me 5 words that you associate with McDonald's. They can be from that previous list. They can be all new words. Doesn't matter. Then you say, I'm going to put 10 seconds on the clock, and I want you to write down 1 word that you associate with McDonald's. Okay. So now, where are you? You're 1 minute and 40 seconds have been spent in your life. And what do you have? You have 1 word that summarizes the nugget of how that person thinks and feels about McDonald's. All right. In your analysis, you have all these other words if you want, but you very quickly get to that pearl of wisdom about McDonald's. Now, when I did this with my company, we learned something in those 1 minute and 40 seconds very interesting. There were clear trends. Half of the company associated McDonald's with nostalgia. They associated with road trips, with sleeping over their grandparents' house, warm, fuzzy memories, hot summer nights. The other half of the company had words like disgusting, gross, don't eat that, unhealthy. So again, in under 2 minutes, we got really quick answers, and I could write a top line report right then.
Yeah.
Based on not only those last words, but those other words that were collected.
I love it. So the 10-5-1 approach, that's good. Yeah, you could use that in a lot of applications. Like I was just thinking about other areas and other keywords or other topics that I would want people to kind of explore. And what do you really think? It's a good way to kind of narrow the thought process. So that's great. Awesome.
Yeah, and it's fast. It's very fast.
Awesome. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap it up. I really appreciate you coming on. If listeners want to know more about you, what you're into, is LinkedIn the best spot or somewhere else?
Yes, LinkedIn is great. Marilisa Beatty. If that's hard to remember, you could go through KJT Group.
Okay.
But I'm happy to answer any questions or just chit chat or network. I love all things Qual. So happy to connect.
Awesome. Well, hey, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you, Dan. Nice to talk to you.